Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I am your girl, Molinda Jae, and I'm here to talk about the Brazil coup that happened earlier this week. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Let me go ahead and share the screen right quick. Oh gosh, hold on. That was the wrong button. Okay, this is coming via CNN. And it says the violent attack on Brazil's government was months in the making. Here's what we need to know in regards to the attempted coup that happened in Brazil. And I do have to say, sounds like America was not the only one, or a certain group in America wasn't the only one that staged a coup, right? Okay, so as you can see, a lot of citizens of Brazil have made their way to the government's building, and dang, they done made it to the roof, honey. Child, I do like the structure of the building. But it says within the article, Brazil was reeling Monday after hundreds of supporters of the country's former leader Jair Bolsonaro stormed the seats of power in capital Brasilia, trashing offices and drawn condemnations from the government and the international community. More than 1,000 people have been arrested, with Brazil Justice Minister Flavio Dino telling reporters Monday that there have been about 1,500 arrests in Brasilia once the Sunday riots happened. The breaches came a week after the inauguration of Lula da Silva, who returned to power after a 12-year hiatus following a victory over Bolsonaro in a runoff election on October 30th. The attack bore similarities to the January 6, 2021 coup that happened at the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C., when supporters of the U.S. President Donald Trump, a close ally of Bolsonaro, stormed Congress in an effort to prevent the certification of his election defeat. Here's what we need to know in regards to events in Brasilia. So, oh my gosh. So, Bolsonaro is an ally of 45. Oh my gosh. Let's go ahead and get into it. So what happened? Footage Sunday showed massive crowds in Brasilia walking up a ramp to the congressional building, where they had reached the green room located outside the lower house of Congress chambers. And interim president Venzanio Vital do Rogo told CNN Brazil. Other outlets showed Bolsonaro supporters entering the Supreme Court and the presidential palace, where CNN Brazil showed the arrivals of anti-riot police and Brazilian armed forces. The floor of the Congress building was flooded after the sprinkler system activated when protesters attempted to set fire to the carpet, according to CNN Brazil. Additional videos show protesters inside the building taking gifts received from international delegations and destroying artwork. The Brazil's presidential communications minister, Paulo Pimenta, described how there was blood, feces, and urine found in the palace rooms. Oh my gosh. Onlookers said they seemed beside themselves with anger, like horde of zombies. They were running down the hallway, smashing things, urinating, defecating on the corridors in the rooms, on one destruction spree, he said. By Sunday evening, several hours after the breach, the three buildings had been cleared of protesters, CNN Brazil reported. At least 400 people have been arrested, according to the Federal District of Governor Rocha, who's arrested. Those arrested will pay for the crimes committed. Rocha tweeted, adding that they are working to identify all the others who participated in these terroristic acts this afternoon. Hours later, however, Rocha was suspended from his post 90 days after the Supreme Court Justice Alexandra de Mores. What? Who are the protesters? The number of hardcore supporters of ex-president Jair Bolsonaro have been making their resentment of Lula clearly since he won the October election, and those grievances have intensified in recent weeks, culminating in Sunday's storming of the Brazil's democratic institution, spurred by unfounded claims of election fraud, supported draped in Brazil's national colors, and wearing the shirt of the national football team, both which became central motives of Bolsonaro's campaign. Spilled into major government buildings, smashing windows and using furniture and form of barricades against security forces. But the events of Sunday did not emerge from nowhere. And here are images of the protesters outside, or supporters of the former president outside. Bolsonaro supporters have been camped out in the capital since his election defeat. Justice Minister Dino had authorized armed forces to set up the barriers and guards of congressional buildings Saturday due to their continued presence. Supporters of Bolsonaro previously clashed with security forces in Brasilia on December 12th after the group attempted to rush into the federal police headquarters, according to a statement from the federal police at that time. A number of camps filled by supporters of the ex-president have also appeared outside of Brazil military bases, with some calling for a coup by armed forces, remnants of the two-decade military regime that ruled Brazil from 1964. Dino said on Twitter on Christmas Day that those camps had become incubators for terrorists after a man was arrested for attempting to set off a bomb in protest against Brazil's election results. Of those arrested so far in connection with riots, 209 people were arrested on Sunday. About 1,200 were arrested on Monday in the protesters' encampment area, Dino told reporters on Monday. What was Bolsonaro's role in the riot? In the months leading up to his election defeat, repeatedly sowed doubt about the legitimacy of the vote without citing any evidence for his various claims. His efforts to suggest that any loss was a result of fraud was immediately liked by his ally, 45, who employed similar tactics during the 2020 U.S. presidential election. After a narrow loss in the final round, Bolsonaro stepped up to those complaints but struggled to gain any vindication from Brazil's regulators and institutions. The head of the Brazil Electoral Court on Wednesday rejected his petition to annual ballots, calling the outgoing president's allegation that some voting machines had malfunctioned ludicrous and insolent, and ostensibly conspiratorial towards the democratic rule of law. And Brazil's Ministry of Defense found no evidence of fraud or inconsistency in the electoral process in the report published in November. Bolsonaro's nonetheless refused to explicitly concede defeat in the vote, while also listing he would comply with the Brazil's constitution during the handover of the power of Lula. Ultimately, he fled the country on the eve of Lula's inauguration and has been staying in Florida since then. So, did he pay a trip to Florida to visit 45? Is that what y'all trying to say? He denounced Sunday's action in a tweet Sunday while equating their historic nature and attempting to draw a comparison with previous acts of the left. The ex-leader said that although the peaceful and lawful demonstrations were part of democracy, the predations and invasions of public buildings had also occurred today, as well as those practiced by the left in 2013 and 2017 escaped the rule. But despite this efforts to separate himself from Sunday's protests, his month-long campaign sold out over the election, laid the groundwork, and ultimately encouraged his supporters to launch Sunday's protest. So, did January 6th inspire Brazil for the riot? It says Sunday's events immediately drew comparison to the storming of the U.S. Capitol building by supporters of 45 almost 2 years ago to the day. And like that event, the riot followed months of incendiary remarks from Bolsonaro about the legitimacy of the Brazil's election of Lula's electoral victory. The two leaders employed eerily similar playbooks before, during, and after their electoral defeats, leading to concerns in each country about how robustly their electoral process and democratic institutions will hold up. He would complain about the supposed fake news about his presidency and insist the polling showed him behind Lula was rigged and untrustworthy, and claimed that voting machines used on polling day were not fit, all which were also imposed by Trump. Whereas Trump spoke directly to his supporters hours before the Washington, D.C. insurrection and then remained in his residence as it unfolded. So he did pay a trip to him. He was not physically in Brazil during the Sunday's riot. In both cases, the riots drew global condemnation and failed to impact the results of the election in Brasilia. Lula had already taken office and there was no process for protesters to disrupt. I condemned the assault on the democracy and on the peaceful transfer of power in Brazil, the U.S. President Joe Biden wrote on Twitter. Brazil's democratic institutions have our full support and will of the Brazilian people must not be undermined. Pimenta, Brazil's presidential communications minister, said the episode that occurred in Brazil is more serious than what happened in the capital because protesters storming the homes of all three branches of power. He called the attacks an attempted coup. In our view, that what happened, there was not an act against the executive branch. It was an attack on democracy, on the Constitution. It was an attempted coup delicate, which failed to materialize, Pimenta said. Furthermore, it says what happens next. In a news conference, Lula described the events in capital Brazil as barbaric and said a lack of security and allowed his opponent supporters to breach barriers set up by military outside the congressional building, the Supreme Court, and the Palanto presidential palace. These people are everywhere, or everything that is abominable in politics, he said, adding that all the people who did this will be found and punished. Commanders from the military, police, and the defense minister would be held accountable in court if the accounts were not dismantled, Supreme Court Justice Alexander said, adding that all highways must be cleared on Monday. Brazil's Attorney General's office said that it was investigating all involved in the breaches. The Attorney General of the Republic, Augusto Aras, monitors and follows with concern the actions of vandalism to public buildings that occurred in Brasilia this Sunday, the MPF said in a statement. Aras has also requested the Attorney General's office in the federal district to immediately open a criminal investigation procedure aimed to holding those involved accountable. So that is what happened earlier this week. Was Brazil basically, it was a repeat of what happened in the US about 2 years ago. And again, as I've stated on my TikTok once before, and I'm gonna say it on my YouTube channel, that yes, even though we are in the year of 7, everybody, but the phrase that I have set aside for the year of 7 is notice the synchronicities in 2023, because there are a lot of repeated actions going on. For instance, what has happened in Brazil is a reflection of what had happened in the US, as well as the stalemate of the House Speaker. That hasn't happened in 163 years. So for that to happen now, I have questions. Is that going to follow through the same way in the elections? Because y'all are playing in our faces and I don't like it. But feel free to leave your comments down below on what you all think, because it's looking as plain as day. History is of course repeating in itself due to some actions of some people, as well as the chaos of it all. Okay, we got people that are leaving this earth in a very rapid manner. So yeah, y'all, we gonna have to not only stay prayed up, in the words of Candy, but also notice the patterns that we are seeing right now, so we can be able to get down to the root of the issue and start the healing process to where we are able to be better as a collective. Without further ado, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Hit that notification bell so you know the next time I upload a video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.